the last episode, a whole bunch of Klingons turned up at the station and their boss, Martok, husband of Sorella, said they were here to protect it. When that protection extended to harassing shoppers and trying to board ships and check for changelings, Cisco decided he needed to get some help in finding the real reason. Enter Worf, TNG's favourite punching bag, who was also unable to get the truth from Martok or any of his other high-ranking contacts. He was able to get it using alternative methods though, by which I mean calling in a personal favour and getting them wankered on blood wine to boot. And the truth is that the Klingons are here to go and give the Cardigans a good kicking. Rumour has it there's been a revolution on Cardassia, and further rumour suggests it's been organised by the Founders as a way to gain a foothold and destabilise shit on this side of the wormhole, so Gowron and the rest of the Klingons have decided to go and kaboom some stuff. Even if the rumours aren't true, it'll be a laugh. Cisco telling Martok that he knows about this, and that the Federation would view such actions so unfavourably that it might risk the peace between them, and doesn't have the desired response, as Martok gets on his ship and leads his fleet to Cardassia anyway. Let's rejoin them and see how Cisco plans to solve this one. Cisco's part of Starfleet, and Rule 1 of Starfleet is that we send very harsh letters before taking any action. That gives anything dangerous a chance to finish before we turn up, and is generally safer for us. It's no surprise then when he's told by Starfleet Command to sit on his arse and await a response to their formal diplomatic procedures, an approach that Kira says is being adopted by Bajor too. Worf's not convinced. He thinks his people are using this as a chance for a good old-fashioned punch-up, regardless of whether there was any Dominion interference or not, and they might not be ready to stop the fun once Cardassia is conquered. After all, those tricksy Founders could be anywhere, even controlling former allies. Stuck between potential future danger and direct orders, Cisco does what most Starfleet officers do: disobey those orders in the most plausibly deniable way he can think of. That's why he asks plain simple Garak for a suit fitting. Cisco's a busy man though, so those suit measurements need to be taken during a meeting, and if that meeting just happens to discuss the imminent Klingon invasion of Cardassia, well, plain simple Garak has been a tailor for a few years now, and a good tailor understands the value of client confidentiality. Plain simple Garak's subsequent call to Seagull Dukat doesn't mention Cisco's suit measurements, so I guess he technically abided by that client confidentiality. Okay, he might have accidentally let something slip about an invasion, but Dukat would have found out about that in roughly an hour anyway, so it's not revealing a secret so much as giving someone a preview. On a completely unrelated note, about an hour later, we're receiving reports in Ops that the Cardigan military was able to respond more quickly than expected after the initial Klingon attacks. Perhaps they were conducting drills in the area or something. Now that the invasion is public knowledge, the Federation have taken serious and decisive action by releasing a press statement saying the invasion is wrong, which is still more than they did about an attempt by Cardigans and Romulans to commit genocide last season. That statement was poorly received by the Klingons, who've not only expelled all Federation citizens from their territory, but have also withdrawn from a peace agreement with the Federation. Curious, then, that a Klingon ship just decloaked right next to the station. More curious still that it has Gowron on board and he wants to talk to Worf. The two go way back, you see, Worf being instrumental in Gowron becoming boss of the Klingons, so Gowron's come to give him a chance to reconsider his allegiance and join the Klingon invasion. The alternative is not just Worf being disowned by all Klingons, but that fate falling on the rest of his family, too. Abandoning his oath to Starfleet would be dishonourable, though, so he politely tells Gowron to eat shit, and prepares to face the consequences. Worf's decided to resign. That's what he tells O'Brien in Quarks anyway, but Cisco refuses to accept it, at least not yet. With so much shit kicking off, he needs everyone he can get, and that shit's getting worse as the Klingons have just broken through the Cardigan defences and will arrive at Cardassia in a couple of days. Cisco thinks there's no harm in getting involved now the Klingons have told the Federation to go fuck themselves, which is handy as the first thing a Klingon force will do is execute the Tatapa Council. Giving them a call produces a somewhat unexpected result as he reaches Seagull Dukat instead. Dukat says he's a loyal Cardigan who'll support any and all legitimate rulers of Cardassia, which is his way of saying that the Central Command was losing. He's delighted by Cisco's offer to help evacuate the Detapa Council, a response likely influenced by him being the new chief military advisor, so he'll be going with them. They arrange for the Defiant to meet whatever ship Seagull Ducat can nick for the evacuation, while Worf worries about what'll happen if those rumours of Founder spies are true. A quick goodbye with Cassidy provides Cisco with some face-mashing to let we viewers know that they're getting it on, and away we go in the Defiant. We're using Sneaky Bastard mode, which is, of course, very much against the deal we made with the Romulans, but it's safer than being visible along the way. We don't have much choice when we reach the rendezvous, as Seagull Ducat's ship is already getting pooped at. Turning off Sneaky Bastard mode and telling the Klingon ships to jolly well knock their shenanigans on the head gets us shot at, so we do the same back. Ducat's ship is all kinds of bollocksed up, so he can't follow us, which means we need to teleport everybody off, and to do that, turn off our shields. Just as well, the Defiant has excellent armour then, and we start to grab the council members, albeit with Bashir checking their blood to make sure the rumours of Founder infiltrators were false. We finish the teleporting just in time for our cloak to break, which means legging it home as fast as we can. Unfortunately, those Klingon ships have taken issue with our interference and follow us. Just as well we got all those station upgrades installed, as those following ships have brought their mates. We have reinforcements on the way as well, but they're going to take a while and nobody expects the Klingons to wait. Everybody's getting ready to repel boarders, something that would seem unnecessary if all they want to do is kill the Detapa Council members, as blowing up the station would do that, but maybe it's a principle thing now. Martok, husband of Sorella, gives Cisco a call and demands he hand over the Detapa Council despite them having been tested. Cisco's warning that the station has been significantly upgraded, just in case the Dominion come calling, is ignored and pooping ensues. Those upgrades might be impressive, and we kaboom quite a few Klingon ships with them, but we're still heavily outnumbered and they wear down our shields. That gives them the chance to teleport in boarding parties, so I guess the defenders were right to expect it. Pooping and slicing begins all over the station, with no small portion of it being in ops, but we manage to keep everything mostly under control, if you don't count Kira getting stabbed a bit. O'Brien manages to fix the shield so no more can teleport in, and Dax gives us additional good news by saying our reinforcements are about to arrive. Another call to the Klingons pointing out that we're about to have some mates turn up doesn't convince Martok, husband of Mirella, but he's not in charge. Gowron sees the logic of stopping, possibly helped by having it explained to him that fighting amongst ourselves is exactly what the Dominion wants, though he does throw a few threats our way before buggering off with what remains of his fleet. Repairs are underway and everything's getting back to normal, except for the dead people obviously, but they don't have names, so fuck 'em. Worf's still of the opinion that he's going to resign, so Cisco delivers a speech about how running from your problems doesn't solve them, and Worf changes his mind. He also changes his uniform to command colours, perhaps thinking that he'll get the shit beaten out of him less if he's in charge, and is given the title of Strategic Operations Officer, something sufficiently nebulous to mean whatever we need it to on any given week. Perhaps another officer is what we'll need, though. The Klingon invasion may have been paused, and the Detapa Council returned to Cardassia to continue ruling, but the outlying Cardigan colonies that got attacked first are still being held by the Klingons, and they're fortifying them. Whether that'll cause more problems, or perhaps help solve them if the Dominion turn up, is something we'll leave our cast to think about until the next adventure. And so the Klingon invasion is ended before it's even begun, or perhaps deferred is the better term. Having them camped out in an already volatile region probably isn't going to help calm things down, but maybe an occupying force might help the Cardigans see things from the Bajoran point of view. Speaking of which, is it possible the formal peace treaty with Bajor last season played a part in the downfall of the Central Command, or was it just a symptom? There was mention in that episode that the Cardigans might go so far as to issue a formal apology for the occupation. That this was even an option is indicative of a change in public opinion, or perhaps a change in how much of an opinion the public felt they were able to have. And that's clearly something the Central Command had noticed. Those peace talks were being conducted by a legate, after all, an officer of the Central Command, rather than someone from the Detapa Council. Perhaps the Central Command were already starting to see how things were going and tried to head it off by showing remorse. Or maybe it's an indication of internal fractures that were then seized upon by their detractors as yet more evidence that the Central Command was unfit for purpose. Whichever it was, it obviously didn't save them. Seagull Ducat jumping ship is a pretty clear indicator of the situation, though a curious one when you consider that he was the overseer of the occupation. How that slots into what we've just discussed is a curious question, though perhaps one explained by him knowing where all the bodies are buried, figuratively and literally. The main purpose of the Klingon cardigan ding-dong isn't the invasion itself, of course, but to give the Federation a new problem to consider. Withdrawing from the Khitomer Accords, our peace treaty with them, means they can be a wild card for whatever's needed in future plots. From a purely production point of view, I'd imagine reusing all the old Klingon models and makeup we've got in the prop department is probably a lot cheaper than introducing something new. It also has the side effects of wiping clean a fair portion of Worf's slate. He inherited a lot of backstory from the TNG days, but the forfeiting of his house through his new Barney with Gowron means we can reintroduce those things at will, and make new episodes about them to boot. You could be forgiven for thinking that's a bit of a hack move, similar to first-person shooter games of the late 90s and early 2000s that had a scene where you lose all your weapons and have to gather them all over again, but it makes more sense for viewers to be given as little baggage as possible from the start and slowly drip-feed it back in. I've previously said myself that shows shouldn't rely on background data from other series, so it'd make me more than a little hypocritical if I complained about this particular slap of the big red reset button. All in all, then, a solid establishing story that gives us both conflict and politics, but perhaps not from the direction viewers would have expected based on the end of Season 3. It was hinted at during the Dyer's cast, our founder spy mentioning that the Klingons and Federation were the only problems in the Alpha Quadrant now, but that could have been considered a throwaway line rather than a declaration of intent. Before we end, I suppose we should talk about the root beer scene. It's a favourite among many, including the cast members who played it. Indeed, Shimmerman and Robinson were largely responsible for it being more than just a joke, by insisting it be played to carry greater meaning. For all the times that we've been told the Federation is a utopia, that it's the best possible option for the vast majority, seeing it mocked by those with different viewpoints does a far better job of making it seem more real. Despite them both hoping it will come to their aid, no amount of profit will ever fully convince Quark, and no amount of subterfuge, plain simple Garak, that it's the best option for them. Knowing something is better than the alternative doesn't mean you have to embrace it. Oh, and one last bit. For those of you keeping track, we start the new season with a nice easy catch for the Babylon 5 crossover club. The officer on the Defiant who told us sneaky bastard mode was working fine, and who subsequently got kaboomed, played Lita Alexander, a telepath of some importance. Patricia Tallman has been on screen in DS9 before, of course, quite a few times in fact, but you might not have noticed as she's been a background character or played stunt parts. I think this is her first talking part for Deep Space Nine, but I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me if that's not the case. And yes, Babylon 5 had Lita with a Y 2 years before Deep Space Nine had Lita with a double E, though the latter was apparently named after a member of the crew before we start pointing fingers. This is one of those curious coincidences that might actually be a coincidence, the exception that proves plain simple Garak's rule. End of episode.
Astro Shen, what do we know about him then?
Well, he's an alternate universe version of you. Oh, and he's French.
French-Canadian, just like I'm from Indiana.
Of course you are.
What I don't understand is why he's being a dick. I've had me moments, all right, but I wouldn't have done anything to him, not unless it were funny anyway.
Maybe he's evil you?
He can't be, I've already got the beard.
Would you have screwed over an alternate you for money?
Of course I would, money's money.
Or to deflect blame from yourself?
Well, yeah, obviously, that goes without saying.
What about if something...
Yeah, all right, I get it. He's being a dick 'cause he's me. Woof.